How did De La Soul really form and come together?
Make a long story as short as possible. It was 1985 summer school. We met up over the love of hip hop, like everybody else. But we was in summer school, and after school every day, pretty much we only had like 2 classes a day. So we would be done by 11 a.m. and pretty much be at my house working on some music, playing music really. Wasn't even quite working on it then, was just playing a lot of music and coming up with different ideas, getting inspired.
Okay. Now, I mean, were you guys, you know, was Plug 1 and Plug 2, were you guys already rapping at that point, or was that kind of the beginning of it all?
Sort of like, we weren't really known.
They were closet MCs.
Yeah. That's a good
They were in the closet.
Like a lot of the Mace is definitely like a well-known DJ in the neighborhood. He was on flyers, and as well as with Prince Paul. I mean, me and Dave, we weren't known as MCs to be rocking at this backyard party or on this flyer. So even by the time we came out, a lot of our friends or people who knew us was really shocked because they didn't even know we rhymed. So yeah, we weren't really known around the neighborhood as being popular for what we were trying to learn to do, opposed to like Mace and Paul.
Now, I mean, at the time that you guys came out, it was like this kind of sort of flow of, gangster rap and negativity and everything else like that. NWA was popping, during that time. But you guys went a completely different direction. When you guys first came out, like, what was the overall effect on people, who were used to mostly gangster rap?
I think when we first came out, people kind of embraced it. I think it wasn't as if, it was oversaturated with boasting rap or gangster rap or anything like that. I think we just formed a balance. We created a balance that people just naturally embraced. I mean, to be able to meet up, and exchange words with maybe a Kane or NWA or a KRS-One or whomever at the time, LL Cool J's and those folks who were just doing like a lot of battle rapping and going back and forth, boisterous rapping, and even gangster rap in the NWA kind of like vibe. And even somebody like, what's his name, out of Philly, PSK.
Schoolie D.
Even like somebody Schoolie D, bumping into Schoolie D. Schoolie D was like, I love you guys, So I think a lot of people embraced us. Like, when we first came out talking about what we was talking about, the totally flip side, a positive vibe, partying with your friends, hanging out, having a good time, appreciating life, or, even just generating the positivity. It was a balance, and those kind of artists definitely embraced it.
And I think at the same time, sharing the same spotlight with those artists of that time presented that balance to the audience. Because I think when the audience see like, NWA actually like De La actually like NWA. And it's such a major contrast between both groups, but there's an admiration for the music on both ends. So when we were on tour together with all these different groups, I think when the audience actually see that contrast and we sharing that time and space, there's another level of embracement for the music.
I mean, you guys even addressed this on your first song, Me, Myself, and I, where based on the way you guys were dressed, I mean, everyone thought you guys were hippies.
Yeah, I think when we first came out, people thought we was hippies. I think it definitely was something that the label had manufactured. I think the label needed something to hang on to and hold on to be able to market us. They needed a label of some sort. And I guess, what we were talking about, fun, free spirit, peace signs, happy music. They, for them, the individuals, the creative heads at the label at the time, Tommy Boy Music, the only thing that they could possibly equate that to was, Woodstock, the hippie eras, the 60s into the 70s. And, for us, we didn't mind it at that time. It was like, if that's going to help kind of like give this thing some shape. We didn't ever see ourselves in a category except for we were doing hip hop. But if it's gonna be a tool to be able to market us, let's go with it. It just got overboard when every picture we take, had flowers in it. That's when it got a little too much.
Right. I mean, that was kind of like, a big shock, I think, to hip hop at the time because, it's called the Daisy Age. You guys have flowers, there's daisies, and it's kind of like, that was just not hip hop at the time. Hip hop was more hard. Like, you know what I mean? You guys came out with flowers. Like, what type of criticisms were you guys getting during that time for that type of thing?
I mean, honestly, I don't think it was necessarily negative criticism. I think like any group, you will have people who like you or don't like you or don't, gravitate more to this particular artist opposed to what we were doing. But it really wasn't a lot of negativity. I mean, like some of our first shows, one of the first shows we probably ever did was World on Wheels in LA. And it was gang members there and they was like coming up and clapping us off like, yo, we love what you do, So there was always, what I loved about our music is that even for someone who was supposedly hard, they found, whether it's through the funk music of George Clinton or the Daryl Hall and John Oates sample and Say No Go, they found music that we were using that they could relate to. So it wasn't a negative experience at all, really.
Yeah, I think for that time, regardless of what you've represented, whether it was street culture or being a nerd or whatever, I think that era in time, it was just all about being authentic.
Yeah.
People could detect when you're doing something real. And I think we were credited for just truly being honest about what we were doing.
And I think it was also reminiscent of those times as well. Like nowadays, you got especially on a tour aspect. Nowadays, you got a tour. It's it's the main feature of the tour, and probably like 3 or 4 other artists that are either parallel or down under the same umbrella, same label. Mm-hmm. Back then, it was kind of nice when you saw like a group like a Run DMC mixed with Houdini, who was probably like the what do you call it, the glam guys of hip hop. Yeah. Then mixed again with UTFO, who was like the breakdancing rappers, and Beastie Boys, who came from another like rock culture. So back then it was the same for us. When we went on tour, it was like the best tour situations to see that mixture. Kane, De La Soul, Special Ed,
JJ Fad,
and then as well as
Ghetto Boys.
So it was kind of good back then that there were differences because people got a chance to see kind of like all the aspects and flavors of hip hop. Mm.